let's go through problem number 1 together. So it says, which of the following functions has the least steep slope? And I like to make a little note to myself of like what that means in terms of the distance to 0, so that when I get to the end, I don't get so caught up that I just like assume that it's the furthest away, because sometimes it's not. So least steep means closest to 0. And then I have my 2 functions, and this first one is a graph. And so I want to basically just count my rise over my run. And you can choose any 2 points on corners to do that. So I'm going to choose this one and this one. And so now I'm going to count my rise over my run. And so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to rise up 1, 2, 3, 4. So since I went up, it's a positive 4. That's my rise. And then I'm going to run to the left 1, 2, 3. And since it's to the left, it's negative 3. And so putting that in rise over run is positive 4 over negative 3. Or just 4 over negative 3. So now I want to look at my function number 2. And this is an equation. And so remember, in equations, our slope is always the m part. And so that is this 5/4. So the part that's in front of x. And so since these are both fractions, I want to just use my calculator and find out what the decimal is of each to figure out which is closest to 0. So 4 divided by negative 3 is negative 1.3 repeating. Just write that down. And 5 divided by 4 is positive 1.25. Well, the closest to 0, so my little note to myself, the closest to 0 would be this one. So I'm going to say the equation, and it said to justify with mathematical reasoning, and I'm going to say the equation is the least steep because its slope is closest to 0. And so the justification is always the distance from 0. So if you are trying to explain yourself, you just have to use the distance to be able to say this is the steepest or this is the least steep because of this.